The reading today is from Jim Collins's book, Good to Great, where the author, a professor of business at Stanford University, explores commonalities of what made almost a dozen companies make a leap of greatness when their counterparts did not. The excerpt goes like this. The Stockdale paradox refers to Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was the highest-ranking United States military officer in the Hanoi Hilton, prisoner of war camp during the height of the Vietnam War. Tortured over 20 times during his 8-year imprisonment from 1965 to 1973, Stockdale lived out the war without any prisoner rights, no set date, and no certainty as to whether or not he would even survive to see his family again. In preparation for my meeting, I read In Love and War, the book Stockdale and his wife had written in alternating chapters, chronicling their experience during those 8 years. As I moved through the book, I found myself getting depressed. It just seemed so bleak, the uncertainty of his fate, the brutality of his captors, and so forth. And then it dawned on me. Here I am, sitting in my warm, comfortable office. I'm getting depressed reading this, and I know the end of the story. I know that he gets out, reunites with his family, becomes a national hero, and gets to spend the later years of his life studying philosophy. If it feels depressing for me, how on earth did he deal with it when he was actually there and did not know the end of the story? I never lost faith in the end of the story, he said when I asked him. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life, which, in retrospect, I would not trade. I didn't say anything for many minutes. Finally, I asked, who didn't make it out? Oh, that's easy, he said. The optimists. The optimists? I don't understand, I said, now completely confused given what he'd said earlier. The optimists. Oh, they were the ones who said, we're going to be out by Christmas, and Christmas would come and Christmas would go. Then they'd say we'd be out by Easter. Then Easter would come and Easter would go, and then Thanksgiving, and then it would be Christmas again. And they died of a broken heart. Another long pause. Then he turned to me and said, this is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. So ends the reading. There was a rite of passage in my school district where I grew up. All children knew about it and even began to eagerly anticipate it as early as 6th grade. Older siblings told the tale to younger siblings. Each year, after the ritual was conducted, talk on the school bus centered around the unique event. Dinner table discussions were many. By the first day of 7th grade, we all knew it was going to happen. And I'm sure you're familiar with 7th graders. They are the foulest, most putrescent creatures that have ever moped the planet. Bundles of oozing hormones and zits, they find fault with everything, and any statement made to them is a reason to insult the speaker. Sarcastic, angry, mocking, yes, these were the creatures that the rite of passage would influence for the rest of their lives. And I have not met a person who experienced the ritual who has forgotten it, even 40 or more years later. Here it goes. We had a teacher in 7th grade who taught biology and health. As a science teacher, he was undoubtedly a geek, a nerd's nerd. He loved science, and he was a good teacher. We learned a lot, and he truly cared about the students. But for some reason, every year, without fail, this teacher had a lesson plan that was far beyond what would be on the agenda in a standard curriculum. It goes like this. Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water would begin to play in a darkened room. A slideshow would begin, rife with images, bloody images, death and dying images of the Vietnam War. And in the back of the room, without fail, the teacher would be weeping. As those wonderful 13-year-olds, we would snicker, trying desperately to get as much out of the experience as possible. Do we watch the slides of blood and gore, or do we pay attention to the weeping teacher in the back of the classroom? I don't remember what my choices were that day. I have aged out of that precious time, grown into adulthood, and gotten 3 children through the same hormone rage, and I verily believe that it is meant that we forget most of what we did and said at that time of our lives. I am confident I did not have grace or understanding or compassion. To use the words of a 7th grader, I'm confident I was an asshat. I've carried this experience silently through the years, never really understanding what it was about. What was the learning objective for that lesson plan? How does it fit into the New York State 7th grade science curriculum? That's the adult educator in me asking, not really expecting an answer. I mean, it was the 70s and 80s. But one day, my husband and I were listening to Bridge Over Troubled Water, one of the most beautiful songs ever written, and he remarked how beautiful it was. I mentioned that I rarely could hear the song and not remember the infamous rite of passage of 7th grade, and described it for him. His response was this: "Your teacher must have felt that there was something in that presentation that you needed to hear. To have willingly subjected himself to the derision of 7th graders over and over, year after year. He only did that because he had something more important to say to you, something more important than himself." Thanks a lot, Sean. I was so much happier letting this strange experience remain unexplained. And in times like these, times when we have so many grown adults behaving like 7th graders, times when there are so many big bad pigs prowling down the roads and trying to blow our houses down, times when we find ourselves fighting for basic human rights against a deluge of uncaring, unfeeling, unhuman greed monsters. In times like these, it becomes necessary to seek meaning, to latch onto that which can be explained and carried with us. And I decided to understand the meaning of this strange experience from adolescence. I keep coming back to this. The courage and resolve that my teacher showed in bearing his soul to the despicable 13-year-olds is really the same type of courage that he was showing in his slideshow. To this day, I can close my eyes and I think I see one of the slides. In my mind, it shows 2 soldiers. One, it appears, is mortally wounded, a chest wound, I believe. The second soldier is propping up the first soldier, trying to carry him to safety. On both of their faces is anguish. The first soldier is facing what seems to be certain death, confronting his mortality, understanding that the brutal fact of this particular moment is that he will most likely not survive. The anguish of the second soldier is of understanding what his friend is going through, knowing that brutal fact, and still finding the strength to carry him to some type of safety. The second soldier is keeping hope even in the midst of these brutal facts. The words of Jim Collins resonated for me. This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. In today's current climate, the brutal facts can be paralyzing. As I write this on a Saturday morning, NPR is telling me that the Senate voted to confirm Todd Blanche as Attorney General in the wee hours of the morning, a solidification of an unjust Justice Department. Private prisons announced $1.4 billion in revenue from immigration detention, which means that someone is making a pile of money as a result of human suffering that could mostly be avoided. Birthright citizenship is taking a hit again, regardless of the Supreme Court ruling. And a website called Kalshi is taking bets on clinical trials? Really? NPR says how ghastly, and I agree. And this is just NPR on a random Saturday morning, yesterday. The brutal facts are that there is a systematic dismantling of our democracy, and every morning we wake up and find ourselves overwhelmed, weary, fatigued, that we are constantly carrying each other to a safe spot in the jungle, and there are no safe spots in the jungle. The lesson of that infamous day in 7th grade was that life isn't just hard, it can be brutal and unfair and tragic. And the only way we get ourselves through the horror is to acknowledge this brutality head on, to confront it and make it part of our existence, and at the same time to maintain unwavering hope that there will be a day when the brutality will pass, when better days will come. And the only way to maintain this unwavering hope through despair is by having relationships with those around us. So where is this unwavering hope? Let me tell you about this thing I see every night when I'm driving home. I work in Orchard Park, and my drive is generally over a half an hour, mostly through construction these days. But then I get to the outbound 33, and there is this bridge over the highway. An inflatable frog person stands on the bridge with signs saying to honk in favor of a political action that I'm not sure I can mention in a 501c3 church. And every night I see the frog person, I honk and wave, and I hope that gives the rest of my frustrated commuters the bravery to also honk and wave. Now, maybe you've also traveled the Niagara Falls Boulevard intersection at Maple Road and noticed the immense MAGA supporters there. Have you often noticed how the other side of the street, on the Brighton side, that side is getting larger and larger as each day progresses? How their voices have risen to give individuals in the community hope. We see it all over the place. The community is mobilizing. And I want to make this distinction. The community is mobilizing, not just organizations. When organizations mobilize, they need a 3-hour board meeting to decide where to put a comma on a mission statement that will be defunct once it's launched. Maybe I'm too Unitarian. But when a community mobilizes, it's the individuals who connect to other individuals in that moment. Somewhere, I know a person who knows the frog person. Sometimes I stop at Niagara Falls Boulevard in Brighton just to stand next to my people. I'm not part of the organization. I am simply an individual who is part of a community, and my voice matters. Authoritarian movements benefit enormously from atomization. People feeling they're alone, that everyone else has given up, that speaking up is dangerous, and ultimately that nothing they do individually matters. Hope is what builds a bridge over the troubled waters of authoritarianism. Hope is what connects individuals together to form a community. Our brutal facts today are many. The unfairness is all around us, as I found on NPR on a Saturday morning. Yet when I think back to my unwitting 7th grade science teacher who taught generations of students a brilliant and subtle lesson, let's not forget to maintain unwavering hope in the midst of the brutal facts. Hope is a little harder to find amidst our brutal facts today, but there it is. It's always here. Hope is the teacher who weeps in the back of a classroom, believing that the worst age group of humanity will hear his message, even if it takes 40 years. Hope is the soldier carrying his buddy out of the jungle with mortar shells all around. Hope is the three little wolves building a house of flowers and making a friend of an enemy. Hope is choosing love and standing on the side of Brighton Road, not Maple. Hope is the friend sailing right behind. Hope lives here in our community, here right now. And because of hope, I know that when I falter, there will be others to carry me. Today, I can only go this far, and I am tired and worn, and tears are in my eyes, and there is adversity at every step. Today, I can only go this far. There are obstacles in my way, and I'm feeling weary and feeling small. Today, I can only go this far, and today I must give in. Tomorrow, though, is another day, and tomorrow I may go farther. But reality is that tomorrow I may still be down and out and still have to deal with the brutal facts. Admiral Stockdale, during his imprisonment, was not only tortured 20 times, but he had to be the leader of other men who were prisoners of war with him and who were also tortured. It was his role to tell them to endure torture. Understanding that no one can withstand torture indefinitely, he instituted thresholds. After so many minutes, you can disclose this information. It functioned to make an unbearable situation survivable. To know that today I can go this far, and tomorrow I will be able to go farther, provided hope for those who had little to hope for. It focused them on the future, on winning the long game. It created a sense of community in the bleakest and loneliest of times. We're in it for the long game. Make no mistake about this. This is a long game. It's an evolutionary revolution. There needs to be an element of patience because we will not win every struggle, and at times it seems hopeless, especially when we confront the brutal facts of the myriad of atrocities I saw in a Saturday news cycle. But throughout all the troubled waters, unwavering hope remains. We are not alone because we have unseen friends sailing right behind us. We will prevail because we have people to lean on. And if we are wise, we know there's always tomorrow, the coming of November, the birth of new hope. No matter what the struggle is, no matter what the day is, tomorrow brings a new day, a new season, and tomorrow we will prevail. Today I have gone this far. Tomorrow we will go further together.